The story of Daniel, the prophet who survived the lion's den, Bible stories. Have you ever wondered how a single man's unwavering faith could challenge the mightiest empires of the ancient world? Today, we're diving deep into one of history's most compelling narratives, the story of Daniel, the prophet who survived the lion's den. What makes this story truly extraordinary isn't just its dramatic moments of divine intervention. It's the remarkable journey of a young exile who rose to become one of the most influential advisors in the Babylonian and Persian empires, all while maintaining his faith under impossible circumstances. Picture this: Jerusalem, 605 BC, a city under siege, the mighty Babylonian army at its gates. Can you imagine the fear coursing through the veins of its young inhabitants? Among them stands Daniel, a noble youth about to be torn from everything he knows. But who could have predicted that this moment of despair would set the stage for one of the most powerful testimonies of faith in human history? What would you do if forced to choose between your beliefs and your life? How would you maintain your integrity when everything around you demands compromise? These are the questions that Daniel faced, and his answers continue to resonate with millions today. This isn't just another biblical tale. It's a masterclass in courage, wisdom, and unwavering conviction. Through Daniel's story, you'll discover practical insights about maintaining your principles in hostile environment, rising to leadership while staying true to your value, finding divine wisdom in life's most challenging moments, turning adversity into opportunity for powerful testimony. By the end of this story, you'll understand why Daniel's example has inspired generations of believers and leaders alike, offering timeless wisdom for navigating our own modern challenges with faith and integrity. Have you ever faced a situation where your faith or principles were tested? If you've experienced a moment where you had to stand firm in your beliefs despite pressure to compromise, type faith in the comments below. Your story might inspire others facing similar challenges today. Part 1. The first test: standing firm in foreign land. How far would you go to stay true to your beliefs? What would you risk when your faith collides with the demands of power? In the opulent courts of ancient Babylon, a young Daniel faced exactly this dilemma, one that would set the stage for his extraordinary journey. Picture the scene: Babylon, 605 BC. The hanging gardens perfume the air with exotic fragrances, while the ziggurats reach toward the heavens like modern skyscrapers. In this maze of power and luxury, Daniel and his companions, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, find themselves selected for a prestigious position in King Nebuchadnezzar's court. The biblical account tells us that these young men were chosen for their exceptional qualities. Young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. Daniel 1:4. The king's plan was both generous and cunning. These promising youths would be immersed in Babylonian culture, educated in their literature and language, and fed from the royal table itself. But herein lay the test: the royal food, likely sacrificed to Babylonian gods before being served, represented more than mere sustenance. It symbolized allegiance to the Babylonian way of life, a subtle but powerful form of cultural assimilation. For Daniel, this presented an impossible choice: maintain his religious dietary laws and risk offense, or compromise his faith for political advancement. What happened next demonstrates the delicate balance between conviction and wisdom. Daniel didn't stage a protest or make inflammatory speeches. Instead, he resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, Daniel 1:8, and approached the chief official with an alternative proposal. This wasn't just about food. It was about maintaining identity in the face of systematic cultural erasure. Consider the stakes. Daniel and his friends were captives in a foreign land, completely at the mercy of their captors. The chief official's response reveals the real danger. "I am afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you." Daniel 1. 10 would then have my head because of you, Daniel 1:10. Yet Daniel proposed a brilliant solution, a 10-day test. Please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. Daniel 1:12-13. This wasn't just faith. It was faith combined with practical wisdom. The results? After 10 days, Daniel and his friends looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. Daniel 1:15. This miracle wasn't just about dietary choices. It was God's vindication of their faithfulness. The scripture tells us that God gave these 4 young men knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning, and Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. Daniel 1:17. This first test established a pattern that would define Daniel's entire career. Unwavering faith expressed through wisdom rather than defiance. In a foreign court where compromise seemed inevitable, Daniel found a way to honor both his God and his earthly duties. His success wasn't just personal. It opened doors for him to influence the most powerful empire of his time. But this was only the beginning. As Daniel's reputation grew in the Babylonian court, his faith would face even greater challenges. The young man who stood firm over dietary laws would soon be called upon to interpret dreams that had baffled the wisest men in Babylon, setting in motion a chain of events that would shake the foundations of empires. Little did Daniel know that this first act of faithfulness was preparing him for greater tests to come. The God who had given him favor in this small matter would soon use him to interpret dreams that would change the course of history. But that's another chapter in this remarkable story. As Daniel's influence grew in the Babylonian court, his gift for understanding dreams would soon be put to an extraordinary test, one that would either cost him his life or elevate him to unprecedented heights of power. Part 2. Divine Wisdom, the Interpreter of Dreams. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to hold the fate of an entire kingdom in your hands? What would you do if you were asked to interpret a dream that no one could remember? And what if failure meant not just your death, but the execution of every wise man in the empire? In the opulent courts of ancient Babylon, around 603 BC, a crisis was unfolding that would test Daniel's faith and wisdom like never before. King Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful monarch of his time, had experienced a dream so disturbing that it robbed him of sleep. Yet strangely, upon waking, he could not remember its contents. The biblical account in Daniel 2 tells us that the king's spirit was so troubled that sleep fled from him. Driven by desperation and perhaps divine providence, Nebuchadnezzar made an unprecedented demand. He summoned his entire council of wise men, the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers, and commanded them not only to interpret his dream, but to first tell him what he had dreamed. The stakes were impossibly high. Succeed and receive extraordinary honors. Fail and face execution. The atmosphere in the palace was electric with tension. The wise men, faces pale with fear, protested, "There is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, however great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician, enchanter, or astrologer." Their protests only fueled the king's rage. In his fury, he decreed the execution of all wise men in Babylon, including Daniel and his companions. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, came to arrest Daniel, we see a remarkable display of wisdom and composure. Instead of panicking, Daniel approached the situation with diplomatic skill and unwavering faith. He requested an audience with the king, promising something that seemed impossible: to reveal and interpret the mysterious dream. But Daniel knew something the other wise men didn't: the source of true wisdom. Returning to his house, he gathered his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah for an urgent prayer meeting. The scriptures tell us they sought mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery. Their lives hung in the balance as they waited for divine revelation. That night, in a vision, God revealed to Daniel both the dream and its interpretation. Daniel's response is a masterpiece of praise. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. He changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. The next morning, standing before Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel demonstrated extraordinary courage and humility. He began not by boasting of his abilities, but by pointing to the true source of wisdom. No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. Then, with breathtaking accuracy, Daniel described the king's dream: a colossal statue with a head of gold, chest and arms of silver, belly and thighs of bronze, legs of iron, and feet partly of iron, and feet partly of iron, and partly of clay. As the king listened in amazement, Daniel revealed how a stone, not cut by human hands, struck the statue's feet, destroying it completely, and then became a mountain that filled the whole earth. But it was the interpretation that truly captured the king's attention. The statue represented successive world empires, beginning with Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon as the head of gold. Each subsequent section represented a different kingdom, decreasing in value but increasing in strength. The stone that destroyed the statue represented an eternal kingdom that God himself would establish. Nebuchadnezzar's response was extraordinary. The mighty king who had threatened to execute all his wise men fell prostrate before Daniel, declaring, "Surely your God is the God of gods, and the Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries." Daniel was promoted to ruler over the entire province of Babylon and chief of all its wise men. This remarkable episode demonstrates how divine wisdom, accessed through faithful prayer, can transform seemingly impossible situations. Daniel's interpretation wasn't just about revealing a dream. It was about showing the sovereignty of God over human history and the temporary nature of earthly power. As Daniel's influence in the Babylonian court grew, so did the challenges he would face. His divine wisdom would soon be tested in ways that would shake the very foundations of the empire. Part 3. Trials and Triumphs. Faith under fire. Have you ever wondered what drives someone to stand firm in their faith when faced with certain death? What would you do if forced to choose between bowing to an idol or being thrown into a blazing furnace? How far would your convictions carry you when confronted with the ultimate test? In the heart of ancient Babylon, where power and pride intertwined like serpents, King Nebuchadnezzar's ego reached new heights. The biblical account tells us that in the plain of Dura, he commissioned a colossal golden statue, 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. This wasn't merely an artistic endeavor. It was a calculated political move designed to unite his vast empire under a single act of worship. Picture the scene: the morning sun glinting off the massive golden image as heralds announced throughout the empire. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image. The consequence for disobedience. Immediate death in a blazing furnace. For Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Daniel's companions who had risen to positions of authority, this decree presented an impossible choice. The scripture tells us that certain Chaldeans, motivated by jealousy, seized this opportunity to strike against these faithful Jews. Standing before Nebuchadnezzar's throne, they accused, "These men pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up." The king's reaction was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. First came the offer of a second chance, a mixture of mercy and threat that would have tempted many to compromise. "Is it true?" he demanded. "I will give you one more opportunity. But if you don't worship, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Their response stands as one of the most courageous declarations of faith in biblical history. With quiet confidence, they replied, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up." The fury that followed was unprecedented. Nebuchadnezzar, his face distorted with rage, ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual. The flames were so intense that they killed the soldiers who threw the 3 men in. Yet, what happened next defied all natural laws. Looking into the furnace, Nebuchadnezzar witnessed something impossible. 4 men, unbound, walking in the midst of the fire. "Didn't we throw 3 men into the fire?" he asked his advisors. "Look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods." When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego emerged from the furnace, the miracle was undeniable. Not a hair was singed. Their clothes were unscorched, and they didn't even smell of smoke. This supernatural preservation led Nebuchadnezzar to make an extraordinary proclamation, declaring that no one could speak against the God of Israel, for no other God can save in this way. This dramatic event illustrates a profound truth. True faith isn't measured by the absence of trials, but by our response to them. The 3 men's declaration, "Even if he does not," reveals that their faithfulness wasn't conditional on God's intervention. They chose to honor God regardless of the outcome. Their story resonates through the ages because it addresses a universal human experience: the pressure to compromise our deepest beliefs for temporary safety or advancement. In today's world, the furnaces may be metaphorical, but the choice to stand firm in our convictions remains just as relevant. As we transition to Daniel's own test of faith in the lion's den, we'll see how this pattern of unwavering trust in God would be challenged once again, but in an even more personal way. The stage was being set for another dramatic demonstration of divine protection, one that would shake the foundations of yet another empire and bring glory to the God of Israel. Just as the blazing furnace tested the faith of Daniel's companions, an even more intense personal trial awaited Daniel himself. The political landscape was about to shift dramatically, and with it would come a challenge that would pit Daniel's lifelong devotion against the laws of an empire. Part 4. The Lion's Den. The ultimate test of faith. What happens when unwavering faith meets seemingly insurmountable odds? How does one maintain conviction when faced with certain death? And what mysterious power could possibly shut the mouths of hungry lions? In the grand halls of ancient Persia, under the rule of King Darius, a remarkable drama was about to unfold. Daniel, now an elderly statesman with decades of faithful service, had risen to become one of the 3 highest administrators in the Persian Empire. The book of Daniel tells us that he so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom, Daniel 6:3. But success often breeds jealousy, and Daniel's prominence sparked a dangerous conspiracy. His rivals, consumed by envy, scrutinized his every move, searching desperately for any fault to bring before the king. Imagine their frustration when they discovered that Daniel's conduct was absolutely impeccable. No corruption, no negligence, not even a hint of impropriety. These men, however, recognized something crucial about Daniel: his unwavering devotion to his God. In a brilliant but malicious stroke of political manipulation, they approached King Darius with a seemingly harmless proposal. Picture the scene: the marble halls echoing with their footsteps as they presented their carefully crafted trap, disguised as a tribute to the king's authority. The decree they proposed seemed simple enough. For 30 days, anyone who prayed to any god or human being except the king would face death in the lion's den. They knew Daniel's habits well: his daily prayers, his unwavering dedication, his open window facing Jerusalem. The trap was set, and they were certain Daniel would walk right into it. True to their expectations, Daniel learned of the decree but remained steadfast in his devotion. The Bible paints a powerful picture. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Daniel 6:10. Can you imagine the weight of that moment? The courage it took to walk up those stairs, knowing that each step brought him closer to either death or denial of his faith. Yet Daniel chose faithfulness over fear, conviction over compromise. The conspirators wasted no time. They rushed to report Daniel's transgression to the king, who suddenly realized the terrible trap he had authorized. The Bible tells us that King Darius was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until sundown to save him. Daniel 6:14. But the law of the Medes and Persians was absolute. Even the king couldn't revoke his own decree. As the sun set over Babylon, Daniel was led to the lion's den. The king's last words to him were filled with hope against hope. May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you. Daniel 6:16. That night, while the king fasted in his palace, unable to sleep, something extraordinary happened in the den. When morning came, the king rushed to the den and called out in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel 6:20. The response that echoed from the den would forever change the course of Persian history. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight. Daniel 6:22. This miraculous deliverance wasn't just a personal victory for Daniel. It became a powerful testament to the sovereignty of God that reverberated throughout the entire Persian Empire. King Darius, moved by this extraordinary demonstration of divine power, issued a decree that the God of Daniel should be revered throughout his kingdom. What made this miracle particularly significant wasn't just the supernatural protection, but the unwavering faith that preceded it. Daniel didn't know he would survive when he chose to continue praying. His faithfulness wasn't conditional on God's deliverance. It was an expression of absolute trust, regardless of the outcome. As we transition to understanding the wider impact of this event, we must recognize that Daniel's night in the lion's den became more than just a story of survival. It became a powerful symbol of faith's triumph, over fear, truth over deception, and divine power over human authority. His example would inspire generations of believers facing their own lions' dens of persecution and trial. The question remains, what lion's den are you facing today? What situations in your life require the kind of unwavering faith that Daniel demonstrated? Perhaps his story can give us courage to stand firm in our own moments of trial, knowing that the same God who shut the mouths of lions still reigns today. Part 5. Legacy and Impact. How Daniel's story shaped history and faith. What makes a single life echo through millennia? How does one man's unwavering faith become a beacon of hope for countless generations? And what can Daniel's extraordinary journey teach us about standing firm in our convictions today? In the twilight years of Daniel's life, as he served under the Persian Empire, his influence had grown far beyond the confines of the royal court. The book of Daniel tells us that during this period, he received a series of remarkable visions that would transform not only his own understanding, but also shape the course of religious thought for centuries to come. Picture, if you will, the ancient city of Babylon in the first year of Belshazzar's reign. The once mighty Babylonian Empire was beginning to show signs of decline, but within the city's walls, an elderly statesman was about to receive divine revelations that would transcend his time and culture. Daniel, now advanced in years, but sharp in mind and spirit, experienced what the scriptures describe as visions of his head while on his bed. These weren't mere dreams. The text reveals a carefully structured series of prophetic visions that would become foundational to both Jewish and Christian understanding of history and eschatology. The first vision, recorded in chapter 7, presents four great beasts rising from a turbulent sea, a striking parallel to Nebuchadnezzar's earlier dream of the metallic statue, but now viewed from heaven's perspective rather than Earth's. What made these visions particularly remarkable was their unprecedented detail and scope. Unlike earlier prophetic writings, Daniel's visions provided specific chronological markers and detailed descriptions of future events. The prophecy of the 70 weeks, for instance, offered a precise timeline that would later be scrutinized by scholars attempting to calculate the coming of the Messiah. But Daniel's legacy extends far beyond his prophetic visions. His life story became a powerful template for faithful living under challenging circumstances. Consider how his example influenced the Maccabees during their resistance against Hellenistic oppression 2 centuries later. The stories of Daniel and his friends' refusal to compromise their faith inspired countless Jews to maintain their religious identity even under threat of death. The impact of Daniel's narrative resonated particularly strongly during periods of religious persecution. Early Christians facing Roman persecution found courage in the story of the lion's den. Medieval Jewish communities under pressure to convert drew strength from Daniel's dietary choices in Babylon. Even in modern times, believers facing workplace discrimination or social pressure find relevance in Daniel's ability to maintain his faith while excelling in a secular environment. Perhaps most significantly, Daniel's writings introduced a new genre of religious literature, apocalyptic literature. His vivid symbolic visions, angelic interpretations, and cosmic perspective became the template for later works like the Book of Revelation. This style of writing offered hope to oppressed communities by revealing God's sovereign control over history and promising ultimate vindication for the faithful. Archaeological discoveries have consistently validated the historical accuracy of Daniel's narrative. The descriptions of Babylonian court life, Persian administrative structures, and even specific linguistic terms used in the book align remarkably well with what we now know about these ancient civilizations. This historical reliability has only enhanced the book's authority and impact through the ages. In academic circles, Daniel's wisdom tradition has influenced discussions about the relationship between faith and secular learning. His ability to master Babylonian literature and science while maintaining his religious identity offers insights into the ongoing dialogue between faith and secular knowledge. Modern scholars continue to study how Daniel successfully navigated these potentially conflicting spheres of influence. The educational implications of Daniel's story are particularly relevant today. His example demonstrates how believers can engage with secular education and professional advancement without compromising their core beliefs. This has inspired countless educational institutions and professionals to seek ways to integrate faith and learning constructively. As we conclude our exploration of Daniel's legacy, we see how his life created ripples that continue to influence religious thought, cultural engagement, and personal faith today. His story reminds us that individual faithfulness, even in seemingly small matters, can have far-reaching consequences that extend far beyond our immediate circumstances or lifetime. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of Daniel's legacy lies not in the grandeur of his prophetic visions or the drama of his miraculous deliverances, but in the daily choices that shaped his character and ultimately made those greater moments possible. Conclusion. Timeless lessons from Daniel's life. As we conclude our journey through Daniel's remarkable story, we find ourselves standing at the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern challenges. The lessons that emerge from his life transcend time, speaking directly to our contemporary struggles with faith, integrity, and purpose. Daniel's journey from captured youth to trusted advisor reminds us that circumstances don't define our character. Our responses to them do. In a world that increasingly pressures us to compromise our values for success, his example shows us that excellence and faith aren't mutually exclusive. They can, in fact, strengthen each other. Consider how Daniel's unwavering commitment to his beliefs didn't isolate him. It elevated him. It elevated him. In an age where many feel they must choose between their faith and professional advancement, Daniel's life demonstrates that integrity can become our greatest asset. His story challenges us to question: are we letting our circumstances shape our convictions, or are our convictions shaping how we handle our circumstances? The profound impact of Daniel's life reminds us that individual faithfulness creates ripples that extend far beyond our immediate horizon. Through seemingly small decisions, like his choice about diet, to monumental moments, like facing lions, Daniel's consistency built a legacy that continues to inspire millions. But perhaps you're wondering, how can these ancient examples apply to our modern challenges? The answer lies not in the specific circumstances, but in the timeless principles they reveal. That true courage often means standing alone. That wisdom comes from a source higher than human understanding. That integrity in small matters prepares us for larger tests. That our private devotion shapes our public influence. As we face our own challenges in today's world, what lions' dens are we confronting? What convictions are we being asked to compromise? Daniel's story invites us not just to admire his courage, but to embrace it in our own lives. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What aspect of Daniel's story resonates most with your current situation? Share your reflection in the comments below by typing courage if you're facing a situation that requires standing firm in your beliefs, or wisdom if you're seeking divine guidance in challenging circumstances. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of one of history's most inspiring narratives. If you found value in these timeless lessons, consider subscribing to delve deeper into more such stories that bridge ancient wisdom with modern living. Remember, like Daniel, each of us has the potential to influence our generation through unwavering faith and uncompromising integrity. Until next time, may you find the courage to stand firm in your convictions, the wisdom to navigate life's challenges, and the strength to leave a legacy that inspires others. Stay blessed, and I'll see you in our next journey through timeless wisdom.